To my independent report. This is exciting. We've had a challenging little bit, but we got it together, and it's going to work out great. I'm surrounded by authors today, and there's Eric Hall, and there's Matt Shea, and I'm Kevin McDonald, and this is my independent report, and this is Transient. I wish I could say that, but that's okay. And Eric, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day, just the kind of spring day we like, lots of color, some sunlight, a little bit of clouds, not too hot, not too cold. And we get to see Matt Shea.
Shea.
That's what I said.
Well, nothing like that guy at the restaurant wearing that hat and eating the cake.
Yeah.
That guy.
And there is Matt Shea or she or Matt somebody and there's Matt Shea. He is an author. He's got 9 books to his credit.
Actually, I have 8, but number 9 is almost out.
He's got almost 9 books to his credit, and he's a great guy. And the three of us, it was fun. We had lunch the other day, and we had so much fun just chatting about that. We decided, why not to create something that would be fun for all of us to do? So I'm glad, and Matt is just figured out the technology, and it's worked out great. He's got a beautiful smile there, and it worked out really well. We can see each other, and it's really pretty cool. So welcome, everybody, to the show. And we've got an interesting topic that Matt has no idea what we're going to talk about, so this ought to be cool. Well, first of all, Matt, you live north of town these days, and north of Seattle.
Yeah,
that's where all the cops are moving to, from what I hear. So, Eric, would you give us a little bit of background on what you know about the topic that we're going to discuss today? It's a little frightening.
Well, it is a little frightening. It's a little eye-opening because we've had some really good progress, in my opinion, in the justice system, at least some eyes opening about the ramifications of how we treat people. But there's always growing pains involved in when a society moves forward. And I do believe that we're making forward progress, but there is some pain going on. And the pain of that right now, you can see in the Seattle Police Department. And Seattle is a progressive city, as we all know, and we're regarded as a pretty wealthy city. I mean, we've got we're home for Microsoft, Boeing, Amazon, UPS. I mean, you name your industry, coffee, Starbucks, you name your industry, we're probably at the forefront. We've got one of the companies that are at the forefront. What that means is that we're very progressive. We're a place that has plenty of ideas, which means that we have a lot of youth-driven activities here. We've got a UW campus that's very progressive in medical and law and business. And how that affects us is this. We have a very progressive city council at the moment. In fact, I'm going to say a word that's very misunderstood. We have a socialist person that
How could you say such a thing?
I did. I said a socialist, and her name, forgive me if I pronounce it incorrectly, Kshama Swanti was a beautiful woman, by the way. Used to be a software designer.
Well,
she's been in office. Yes.
I was just going to say, before we go into the in-depth, let's do the headline, which is
mass exodus in the Seattle Police Department.
Yeah, I was just reading here that they're anticipating losing 200 officers before the end of the year, which will take them to levels that are lower than 1990. Yes,
which means that our emergency systems are drastically affected.
Yes, it does. So continue. I just wanted to set that up so that people had some idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's good to point out, because if somebody calls the cops, it could take a few minutes to get some help, which is going to have some very bad ramifications, particularly the town that I live, in the part of town that I live in, which has some issues. I mean, we have a few Saturday night specials in this area. I live right on the border of White Center and Burien. And sometimes there's gunfire on the left, sometimes there's gunfire on the right. And it, sort of takes turns. And I just I lay a little bit lower in my bed and hope the bullet's clear over my head. Now,
White Center is quite the area. It really is.
It's quite the area. A lot of good food, a lot of great food. Yes, sir.
White Center used to be famous many years ago. And for example, the skating rink in White Center?
Yes.
At one time, they had boxing champions there.
Really?
Joe Louis, among others, have done title fights in that skating rink. People forget that. It's like the Coliseum at one time the Beatles played there. That skating rink was part of the circuit for the highest level of professional boxing.
I never knew that.
I didn't either. And I was a boxer.
Fantastic. Is that right? That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
And see, so White Center wasn't always in where it is now. It's declined. I think it's fair to say, in all seriousness, it's fair to say it's declined over the years. And there is a lot of gang activity, and there is a lot of drug activity, and there's just a lot of activity.
There is. And this Shaman Swante, she's been in trouble as a few of our other city council members have been toe to toe with the Seattle Police Department, both in cutting the budget as thin as possible, severely, where they just don't have the budget to deal with their jobs at times, where they have to cut back their personnel to the bone, where their detectives just can't get around to as many cases as they'd like. And there's been a point where they've even said some of the wrong things, like if you're white, your job is in trouble, and that's when they were dealing with the Black Lives Matter movement at the forefront of that. And there was even a point where there was some violence going on when Moktoff, what do they call those Moktoff bombs?
Molotov cocktail.
Thank you. Being thrown at the police department there at Capitol Hill, and things like that. And people got away with it. So as much as we've moved forward and deal with our justice, it's cost us some. And it's cost our concept of policing. It's cost us a good police force. Our police force has a reputation of being brutal at times. But here's where humans really suck at moving forward, because we don't take time to think ahead about our actions. And I really don't have the answer to this. Historically, we suck at moving forward. We have wars, or we take steps, and not everybody's ready to take those steps. And we can point out different circumstances, the women's movement, when we finally got around to giving women equal rights, we didn't handle that well. And it should have been handled well. What's that?
Still don't, by the way.
We still don't. We haven't handled it. We didn't think that through. The civil rights movement, that's taken more than, that's taken 400 years. I mean, we just suck at moving forward. And again, we're proving it again.
Oh,
yeah.
The man's got his hand up.
I'm from South Seattle, and the show 60 Minutes wanted to do my senior class in 1976, because we were the most integrated classroom the nation ever had. If you recall the show Room 222, that was basically us. They didn't do it, but they almost did. Now, what I want to point out something is that we got a rebellious society. If you look at Tanya Harding, and if you look at Don King and others, they got there by default. It became greatly trendy and encouraged to go against the grain and defy. We got wonderful police, but more and more we have an opposition against them where the police are more and more restricted to do their job. I don't fault the police. I fault an attitude that society has where we're just going to rebel. We have people, and I've worked with some of them, that decide they don't have to work. They're going to do this and that. I've worked with people that say, you don't understand. We can get a settlement. We can get a lawsuit. I don't fault the police. I fault everybody's home value, rebel, speak out, go against the grain. Sometimes the police are at fault, but to generalize, it's such a large momentum. If they do anything, people cry foul.
Well, you know, guys, and Eric, you know this. Being a bus driver, we see the interaction between the general population and the police all the time, or the general population and us as bus drivers all the time, and it can be very difficult at times. I tell you, I'm pretty darn sure I would not want that job. That is an extremely tough job. And you very rarely can you do you win. Go ahead.
No, I don't know how people. One of the most compassionate, intelligent people I know in this world is a policeman. It totally took me by surprise that he did, because this gentleman, in my opinion, is really had a lot of options to do things, and why he chose to put his life at risk every day for so little surprised me, because you never would have picked up on from him through the years in our childhood that he would end up being a cop. He was not an authoritarian person. And this is part of what we do. We perceive cops as authoritarians, as we should. And this is where I'm going to split with Matt a little bit with my opinion, because our concept of police, and I think the police have a concept of authoritarianism that does need to be rethought. And as Kevin pointed out, we do see people, and Matt, you rightly pointed out, there are people out there that don't feel they have to work to get by in this world. And it's those people don't necessarily need brute force to be handled. It is correct. I think our police department needs to be rethought to include people that have social services as first contact, that include psychological approach to many issues, whether that's domestic violence, what do you call that? People that are hooked on drugs, people that are just plain nuts, people that are just kind of lost, or they're young kids that stole some food just to get by, that just need some help. You know, whatever the situation is, I hate to put a policeman in that position that, frankly, we can't train a police officer to be everything. We do need some people to go out there, like SWAT teams. We need somebody with that knows how to use a gun. We need people that know how to punch somebody in the nose. We need an authoritarian from time to time. But I'm truly a believer that as many times as we need somebody that can be an authority, we also need somebody that knows the system, knows how to help somebody, or at least reach out to that person and see if that person can be brought into the fold. And here's why I say that. They've been cleaning out the homeless camps, particularly the ones by the schools. And this is an interesting concept, because of course, they don't want the homeless camps near the schools because they're a safety risk. You know, they got the propane tanks going by, so the kids are at risk. You know, whatever happens, there are propane tanks. Let's be honest. Many of the homeless people there are a little bit sketchy because of the drugs, and there's a history of child prostitution, and what have you that goes on there. They can buy drugs from these homeless people on the way to school. So they want to clean them out, get them away from the school.
It's a one-stop shop.
Yes, Matt.
Matthew.
When I lived in Burien, I got a welfare hotline, welfare check, because I would see people out with carts with all their life possessions in front of a fast food place. And I would call the police and they would talk to the person, and they told me that the police know all the homeless. They said in that town, there's enough shelter and food for everyone. These are people determined to live out on the street. At an apartment complex I lived in, they had all these young people that would abuse the word homeless, and they would say, well, I could go to my parents, but I don't like them. It was an option of a fun circus to be with when society is not given credit for how we do provide what we have. And when I would volunteer for seniors, they would get targeted. People would try their luck to break the heart of a senior or intimidate, scare them to get the handout. And that appalls me at this point. Society just has this momentum of free ride, and we will play by our own rules, and it's the expense of the taxpayer and the police officer. They're not getting their respect, and they're the consummate melting pot theory. You name the ethnic background, they represent the best law enforcement we've ever had.
Eric?
Well, see.
Well, so let me throw my 2 cents worth in here.
Yeah.
I think that in Seattle, as in everywhere in our country, we've taken the wrong approach. We are a capitalist society. We think that everybody should be able to do on their own, but we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the ability to make sure that families stay together, to make sure that mentally ill people get the treatment that they need, to make sure that the police, first of all, I think the police are not only, I think they're underpaid. I think their standards need to be higher, because there are people that decide they want to be policemen who should not be, because they're not good enough. What do you guys think of that?
Sure. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think that goes to the point where what we offer as police needs to be broadened. Not everybody should be carrying a gun. Not everybody should be using force. They should have specialized people that can offer different services.
I agree.
And as far as, society, that's systemic. As far as society having things to offer and people refusing to take them, that's a systemic issue. That capitalism, as wonderful as it is in offering solutions for creativity and progress, it doesn't take care of, it's not a responsible society as a whole. Like Kevin says, it leaves areas where people fall into the honeycombs, like the people that really should be in homes, like Reagan made it possible for the people that were in mental institutions to live on the streets. That should not have been done. We should have programs that people should be fed at schools, whatever it is. I'm not a guy that has the intelligence to see every issue solved, and probably none of us here, even if we combined our efforts, could come up with every answer. But it is obvious that we have problems. Yeah, that cat could probably answer them. But we do have problems of irresponsibility. I think we can all agree on that, whether it's self-imposed or a systemic thing. But it has trickled down to, how do we police ourselves? That's the immediate result of what we're looking at here. And Seattle's facing it in a very real way. And it's facing it because of our politics. We have a city council that is dividing our police department where it's very thin and going to get worse and put our citizens at risk. And we have an opportunity here to really lead the nation in reinventing what a police department can do. Yeah, Matt, go ahead and just speak.
I greatly appreciate you, Eric. What gets me is, what is the right concept when the governor says we are a type of state, which means come here if you're homeless, come here, and there's a word for that.
The welfare state?
Generous?
Kind of, but there's a specific word, like is it refuge, something like that. But anyway, the word is out. If you're hurting, come here.
Yeah.
So we have an incredible amount of people coming in here that are playing by their own rules, contributing to the mayhem when we have to get on our feet with our problem with homeless and lawlessness and so forth. They've just opened up the gates and come one, come all.
I'm an unabashed, what I would call an unabashed liberal, but I'm scaring myself because I'm about to say something that's very conservative.
Hold on.
Yeah, you might want to write this down.
Okay. All right.
First thing is, whatever happened to compulsory service for kids out of high school before they go to college? Spend 2 years working in service to the country, and it's compulsory. You can't. It's not a voluntary program. This is something that I think that everybody, that we should, as a country, demand of our youth, so that we can teach them how to become a human being, how to become an adult, and how to become responsible. Even if all that is 2 years of how to engineer life, how to write a check, how to how to develop a savings account, how, you know what I mean? And that would be one. The other one is, I think that people, in order to have a baby, need a license.
Good for you, man. What happened to that idea? That was popular at one time, wasn't it?
It
or
was.
At least an idea that was floating out there. After high school, you go do some public service.
It was John Kennedy who originally, and Matt, you might know this better than I, but I think it was John F. Kennedy. They put together a program that has gone by the wayside. It was not compulsory. It was volunteer. But did you remember the name of that program way back when, Matt?
His quote was, don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you could do for your country. And Israel and Germany are two prime examples where after high school, you serve a bit. You're really in with society, serving and going by those values.
Yeah. I think that would be one place to start. And also we have got, I defy either of you to look in the yellow pages and find a free place where somebody can go who is manic depressive or bipolar, number one, to get diagnosed, and number two, so that they can get them into the system. I don't know of such a place. Do you?
Well, they claim they exist, but getting there and getting through the system is a whole nother. That's why we need the cops redefined.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, we need that kind of outreach program, because a lot of those people that we run into on the bus or in those streets, that is exactly. I mean, tell me that woman that I pull up to on 12th Avenue that walks out in front of my bus and drops her pants and goes number 2 in front of me. Tell me that she's okay. No, there's something wrong there. I don't mind saying that. Something wrong with her.
She's just fine. She's just fine. No, go ahead, Matt.
I love this topic, and I like your input, each of you. And what gets me is the police. There's an upside. I know of a police officer who took someone homeless in who's living out of a car, and it worked out. They provided. Now, maybe that's bending the rules a bit one way, but a glorified Good Samaritan. The police are kind of punching bag target, and they generally start off as decent, caring person, because you don't get rich off of this job. You're lucky if you make it to retirement. And yes, I really like that Eric pointed out that we need specialties. We need those who are marksmen and hopefully never to be called upon, those who are very good with specific elements of social work that blend that our society is made up of good and bad. So I like this instead of just one size fits all, the specialists out there. That's really good, Eric.
Well, I think that's what we need. You know, we have an opportunity here in Seattle to do it.
We've got the, you know, when you first started, you were talking about the number of big businesses here. What that equates to is we have a huge tax base, which is why why the Seattle Council is making these weird things, because they've got the money to do it.
And the mentality. This is where the big business comes in, because they have a stake in this. And what big companies really don't want us to know is that they have a stake in society. Amazon, as big of a footprint as they have in this city, and face it, they changed this city.
They did.
They changed this city. And every city in this country knows how they changed Seattle. And when Amazon went to those other cities and wanted to start their second corporate home, that had an effect on the bidding process. They said, oh, well, housing prices went up. You guys don't want to pay taxes. You don't want to do this. So this has got to happen. That's got to happen. We have to plan for this. It got very complicated. It's not like Boeing saying, turn off the lights, we're leaving. It's not like that anymore. It's a whole complicated. There's a whole political and educational process. They want to breed. Now, yes.
These very corporations, Boeing talks about Carolina, Microsoft just inside of Vancouver. They have a plan B safety net ready to go. They're not always going to be there for us unless we play ball with them.
They say that, but they need the pool of education, and wherever they go, they're going to have the same effect on the town that they go to. This is not something they can escape from. They have imprinted a society or an element of society that will forever follow whatever it is they do. In fact, they have birthed a culture.
They have. And yes. in what is it, South Carolina? Is that where they're at as well? Yeah. That's a non-union facility. And this is a union facility here for now. Yeah. But they're going to end up, because they have such a special. Well, I want you to think about this: Boeing with the 787, and with what they're trying to do, they're trying to make it so that they can dumb down the ability for people to put these planes together, and you have to have a certain amount of expertise to be able to do that, and so the union's workforce has that expertise. You can't hire somebody for $15 off the street or $20 off the street and get the same kind of expertise as a union worker can offer you. Go ahead and yell at me if you want.
I am very close to a Boeing worker in that mix, and they say maybe Carolina now is non-union, but if Boeing goes there with it, the union will flourish as well, because that's what the whole package is. It's what you're saying.
Yeah, because
as it should be.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, as it should be. We always want the best out of our workers. And let's face it, as workers ourselves, we want to do the best work we can do.
Well, and the other thing, back to our original point, they have to have Amazon, Boeing, all these guys, they have to have a workforce that lives in a place that's safe. That they feel like that the police are there for their protection, and that they don't have to worry about their own lives and livelihoods, so that they can live.
I think you just said infrastructure, right?
I did, and they need great infrastructure. We need great policing. We need to. I agree with you, Eric. I think we need to start at the very beginning and redo the entire thing, because it ain't working. Matt?
This is off on a tangent a little bit, but the same topic. New York City has gone back and forth the right to randomly frisk, and they confiscated an awful lot of armed people who should not have been armed. And from there, the homicides have greatly dropped, but people cry foul, I'm being violated. What do you two have to say about the police having that option?
Is this a stop and frisk thing from the Bush
Yes.
era, or is this contemporary?
Yeah, this is from
it's from Bush on forward, because the mayor of New York has gone back and forth with it.
I'm on the fence on that. I'm on the fence on that. I think it's if the police have a reason, if they're stopping people because they're truly suspicious of their behavior, and they can do so by proving that they're doing it based on real things, like the guy ran out of a liquor store with stuff under his coat and we were suspicious of his behavior, then that makes sense to me. If they're doing it because the guy was walking down the street and he avoided eye contact with me, then we were suspicious. I have a problem with that. So, again, that's a tough question. I'm really glad you asked that question, Matt, because that's really one of those questions that, that's a tough one to answer, because how do you, yeah.
Okay, Eric, you're a bus driver, right?
I think so.
Yes.
I'll find out tomorrow.
In the thing that's called the book, which is the rules of bus driving.
Yes.
If I get on your bus and I have a gas can, do you let me on your bus?
No.
Because it's a dangerous substance, and so we can deny entry to somebody who's got a gas can. I walk onto your bus and I've got a 9mm strapped to my hip. Can I get on your bus?
Yes.
That is the stupidest thing I can. That is just so unbelievably. See, I think the first thing is Washington State is an open carry state, which means you can carry a gun. You don't have to be licensed for it. You don't have to register it. You can carry it at any time you want to. And I think those sorts of things need to be addressed first. And I know, Matt, you probably disagree with that, but go ahead.
Well, where I came from had a lot of West Side story to it. I've had a friend shot in class. I've had a friend stabbed in class. In my neighborhood, I had a gun pointed at me, and somebody yelled, shoot, and someone said, no, I think that's Matt. And so freely, I've had friends who shot people playing with these weapons. And so we have far too many out and far too many not qualified having them. And that's got to be addressed. You got to break some eggs to make an omelet, not to hurt people. But I am not against guns. I understand the NRA. But again, to coincide by the laws we actually have and don't budge on them.
Well, here's this is what's interesting to me, because as you guys know, the COVID situation has now gotten a little bit lighter, and we expect to be able to have barbecues this summer with some of our best friends we can have over. You guys are going to come over this summer, and we're going to barbecue in my yard.
Yeah.
And we'll get to play yard games. But the bad news is I don't have any yard darts. So I went online to find out if I could order some. And it's illegal to order yard darts. But I can order some AK-47s online. So here's a solution. I can order some rings, rings like this, and I can space them, one end of the yard to the other, and I can order a couple AK-47s, and we can just sort of shoot them into the air and aim for those bullets to land into those discs, because that's perfectly legal. And that'll be our yard darts. I'll call them yard 47s.
I had no idea yard darts are actually legal.
You can buy them if they already exist. So if you're at a trade fair or an antique store and you run into some yard darts, you can buy them. but you can't buy them new.
Is it going by way of the Dr. Seuss books?
No, that was self-imposed. That company decided they didn't want to offend people with a couple of those books that were, I don't recall which ones they were, but they, had some racial tones to them. So they decided, well, we have, these 100 or so books. We don't need to offend anybody because these other 98 some books will work just fine for everyone. But the yard darts, I guess they killed a couple of people. A couple people got hurt, some back in the 70s. And, I don't know how many people have been hurt by AK-47s. I don't know. But AK-47s don't do it. People do it. Yard darts apparently are they will hurt you.
So go ahead, Matt.
I love playing yard darts. Did it all the time. It reminds me of the 4th of July. They have statistics for more killed celebrating the holiday than the ones who died in battle, giving us independence. A question I have is, we know where Algona and Pacific are. They're side by side. One allows fireworks, the other does not. I think it's one city block, an intersection where you can or can't. Where I'm going with this is it time to make everything federal across the board, so no matter who or what, we're at least on the same page?
There's another fine question.
Here's another fine question.
because from my perspective, you've got to have local, because every community is local in its base and it changes and it's based upon what's happening with them locally. But still, I think that there should be some rules of the road that we all live by. For instance, it's illegal. I'm pretty sure that it's illegal to kill somebody in all 50 states. Isn't that true?
Yes. I almost said it, but I'm just going to agree.
I'll have to look that up. But I'm pretty sure
it is illegal. Yeah.
But there are some things that California wants to do differently than we want to do, and I can tell you, Matt, have you been down south or back east?
Yes, not recently, but I have been there.
You know how different.
Yes.
More in the southern United States, like Arkansas and Missouri and Georgia and all those. It's a different culture. It is a completely different culture.
When I drove semi long haul, different states, different laws, and a lot of times you had to stop at the boundary line because you'd have to adjust your trailer to be legal from that stretch of interstate going through that state. How many trailers you could pull, so on and so forth. Some states, one in particular, doesn't like semis using flashers. And so it goes, yeah, it's like going through Europe, all these small countries. Driving a truck, it's not the same rule, and that includes the speed limit. California, I believe, has you pegged at 55. Other places let you take it up to 60, 70.
And that'd be based on like Montana. I think they're like 70, aren't they?
Yes.
And they were one of the last to adhere to a federal standard. They were like speedless. And that was based on population because.
Right. It was like an Autobahn in its own right. And I believe you could haul triple trailers there and also in Nevada, but not everywhere. But again, it's musical chairs, who's on first. Yeah. And a person could wander into another state and plead ignorance because that's not how I was raised. I'm law-abiding. I've never been arrested before. That argument.
Yeah. Paulette, isn't it true you guys have more sheep than humans?
It would say that again. I missed that.
I think she's out there. Anyway.
Yeah, she is. But say what you said again. I didn't get it.
About what? Do they have more? Montana has more sheep than humans. I think. What do they have?
We understand.
They have 500,000. They have like 500,000 people in the whole state of Montana, and Montana is like bigger than what 6 of our states combined.
Yeah. Well, and of course, who wants to live there? But besides that, and they've got their speed limit is 70 miles an hour over most of it, but it's not, or 75 in some cases. In Texas, going between it just floored me. Going between Houston, where was I? Dallas. No, wait a minute. This is Arizona. Scratch that. Arizona. Between Phoenix and Tucson, the speed limit's 90.
Really?
On the freeway. It's 90.
Wow. I got to go there. I hate Texas. I got to go there again, I guess.
Well, this is Arizona, but
Arizona. Sorry.
And Paulette says, well, hold on.
Excuse me.
What did you do? Or did you think that I did something? That I just needed the excuse?
Yeah, you said nobody wants to live in Montana.
Oh.
I like Montana.
I do too. Montana is a beautiful state.
Yep.
And they have the highest
word out. Don't
That's
get the
right.
word out. Yep.
And they have the highest per capita of millionaires of any state in the union.
Oh, really? I had no idea.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
When I was driving tour bus, I was in a city and I took what I thought was a natural free right. And I was told, no, if you look into our rules here of the city, the driving, you cannot take a free right in this area. Well, it's just a given, an unwritten rule that you can do that everywhere, at least have a sign saying I can't. But how innocent. I didn't get a ticket, but I never heard of that one before. You get these peculiar things from little towns to little towns, and you're doing your very best to do it right.
See, that's called a fundraiser.
I get it.
Those people don't have big tax bases, so you're the tax base as you go through town. All right, who's next?
So that's Kevin. Hi.
How you doing? Let's. I'm doing fine, thank you. Let's go back to talking about. Of course, if we all had our way, I got it. I know what I know. I got it. If you guys were king of the country, what's the one law that you would enact for the entire country that isn't currently in play? I mean, if we're talking about like the 10 Commandments and stuff, stealing, that's pretty much everywhere and all that kind of stuff. But if there was one law that you could enforce for the entire country, what would it be?
One law. One law. Go
Matt.
ahead.
I don't know if we have the technology to do this, but if we had technology that would let the police know if somebody was armed, that would put a proper spin on things instead of the person was unarmed, or wait a minute, they are armed, so that there was just a way of knowing that, and that's all of us, just so that you understand what type of situation you're getting into or not.
That's a really good thing.
If we're able to do that.
Well,
that's intelligent. Yeah.
And part of the problem though is, and this I don't quite understand, because if I get pulled over by a cop, and the cop says, on your knees, on your face, get hands behind your back, get down. I am going to get down. I'm going to obey what the police officer has said, because he said that he wanted me to do that. We have a lot of people who don't subscribe to, well, I didn't do anything. Why should I get down because I didn't do anything? Well, there's a reason why he put you on the ground, and then there have been many people that have died because of that. They refuse to cooperate. Matt?
Have you seen the new Florida law or Florida law proposal?
No.
Okay. I should have sent it to each of you instead of just reading it. But they've gotten very harsh on certain rules to get back to the basics of cooperation.
So what do they do if you choose not to cooperate?
Well, my understanding that with our Constitution, the moment somebody resists arrest, they have lost their rights.
I'm not 100% sure that would be 100% accurate there, sir.
At one time, it initially was, and it might have changed because you always have criminals wanting rights. But initially, you're to cooperate. You're to do that because these problems we're having, a lot of times it's someone with an obscure past who decided to go against the grain and push went to shove instead of walk through the motions. The George Floyd thing, there were those witnessing saying just cooperate with the officers. There were those saying that when they watched it.
Well, but he was handcuffed.
Oh, yes,
on his face.
Yes. Initially, it led up to that. He shouldn't have lost his life there, but initially it was the refusal, and then reaching to that level of that. We wish it never happened.
And you know why I think that's happening, and Eric, I'd like your viewpoint on this, is because there is such amount of fear by a segment of our population that if you are accosted, if you are stopped by a police officer, that you are in your life is in danger. It is. They assume that from the very beginning, that their life is in danger, even if they haven't done anything wrong. And so that's, in some cases, that's why they fight and fight to run, and the guy who fell asleep in the drive-through, who, you remember that story, who fell asleep in the drive-through because he'd had too much to drink. The police came, they moved his car, they talked to him for an hour. Then one of the cops decided that they were going to arrest him. And so he started to run, and he got shot in the back and killed. That's happening way too much.
And here's to your point. There's people of color out there whose lives are in danger. Statistically, that's been proven out. Correct. I have several friends of color who have raised their sons who fear every day for their lives and have had multiples of conversations throughout their lives about how to behave if they get pulled over. Right. How to cooperate, what to say, how to move. Now, we have to think about that. How would we move? Now, to put that in perspective, if you guys remember the gentleman that shot a number of people here a couple of years ago, and the policeman captured this guy alive after he shot several people. The guy was in the back of the car, complained that he was hungry, so they bought him a burger on the way to jail. That guy was white.
Yeah.
That kind of puts it in perspective. Hey, man, I'm hungry. And he got a burger on his way to jail. That didn't happen to the guy that fell asleep in the food. The guy that was picking up from some fast food. He fell asleep in the car. He got killed. That didn't happen to the guy that allowed the handcuffs onto his back and cooperated. It was choked out over 9 minutes and 40 some seconds. And the list goes on. You know, the woman with the 16-year-old woman with the knife, I forget her name. And I don't know the complete story on that. And I'll tell you, man, I'm on the fence on that. I'm not fully versed in the facts on that to comment, but if she has a lethal weapon, I don't know why she couldn't have been shot in the leg. But that's on the surface. I have to bow to the policeman's judgment at the time, and not knowing the full case. This is one of those instances where I have to say, okay, well, maybe the policeman had to make a split decision and he took her down. But I wonder, how come he didn't shoot her in the leg and take her down, incapacitate her? He has to be at least a good enough shot to do that.
You'd think, but at the same time, and I know the one you're referring to, she was going after another girl and was going to stab that other girl, and
See?
and you could see it clearly that she had her arm back, and you could clearly see the knife because she was out of her mind with rage of some kind.
Then he may have done the right thing, and that's sad, but it is truth, and it's certainly true through statistics that there are people out there of color that have reason to fear the police, and they have fear whenever they see a cop car pull behind them, no matter what stage in life they are. And it's happened to congressmen, it's happened to doctors, it's even happened to a judge, it's happened to a police captain. I forget his name, but he actually ran a police department, and he got pulled over and he was brutalized, and boy, where did heads roll.
Yeah, well, I have a good friend that she's a white lady. She's married to a black man. They have 2 kids, and they're both mixed race, and they both look African American. She has on their phones. She has and somehow they've got it hooked up so that if he gets stopped, it automatically goes to her phone, so that she can go to wherever he is to protect him from the police officer. And she's had that conversation with him. As a matter of fact, there's a podcast that you should listen to, that hands on the steering wheel, don't look left, don't look right, do not say anything, have your paperwork in order, and comply with whatever the policeman wants. If you comply, there should be no problem, but we're finding out that even when you comply, there are problems. It's we've got big old bad problems in that respect, and it's got to change somehow. And you guys are smarter than me. How?
I
Matt,
think just go ahead, Matt.
This is just a question I'm throwing up in the air. We're talking about defunding one way. If we took it the extreme opposite and you had quite a bit out there, so you had this strength, momentum, and unity. So it wasn't one guy being trigger happy and playing it safe. It was a group that had a firm control of a situation. And I'm simply asking, is that a possibility that might work favorably?
You mean overfund the police? So you have a larger police force?
Yes. But again, you would, as we were talking initially, it would have to be an education construed in how best policy so that we get through this thing without having a mishap, because that's the key behind it.
I think even though nobody's asking my opinion, but I think that, in my opinion, we need to fund our criminal justice system, our healthcare system. Oh, damn, did I say healthcare system? Oh, my.
I think you did.
Oh, geez. It could be Obamacare. It could be. We need as a country to fund our day-to-day living and our health and our well-being, and to make sure that the police are funded well enough that they have different departments. By calling the police does not necessarily mean that you need to have a gun with mace and a nightstick come to a domestic violence deal. That's not, well, that's a poor example. There was a guy, I just read about it this morning. Hispanic individual. He was sitting on a park bench. He was drunk. Somebody called because he was acting a little bizarre, which happens when you're drunk. And so the police came and they spent time with him. And then one of them made the decision that they were going to take him to jail. He said, I haven't done anything. I don't want to go to jail. And I've seen this, by the way, in my own personal life. I've seen this happen a bunch, where somebody will say, I haven't done anything wrong and I don't want to go to jail. And then the police grab him, and then it escalates. And then it escalates and it escalates, and then it's take him to the ground. And then it's he's not going to the ground. So now you've got a fist fight between a cop and a guy who doesn't want to go to the ground because he's drunk. He has done nothing wrong. But in his mind, why can't we have somebody that is not as confrontational, or a department part of the police force that is not confrontational, that we can send out there that can sit there and talk to the guy for a period of time. I'll give you an example. There was a guy that got on my bus one time, and I was driving down to South Center on the 150, and I look in my rearview mirror, and there is this individual. He had gotten on the back of the bus, so I never had a chance to look at him, and he was splayed out by the articulated section, completely out on his back, his arms and his legs spread. Nobody moved. Nobody said, "Hey, buddy, are you alive?" or anything. They just, people are people anyway. So I stopped the bus, because when you have somebody that's like that, you got it. So I stopped the bus, went back there. I could not wake him up. So then I called for assistance. The supervisors came. They could not wake him up. And so he was still down. And then the policeman came. And in this case, this was a King County cop. Great guy, did a wonderful job. And the guy's still lying there. And he says, "Wake up, buddy, wake up." And then he takes his finger and he rubs his eyeball with his finger.
The cop did, or the drunk
cop did? No, the guy still wasn't awake. So the cop rubbed his eyeball with his finger, and that apparently they know how to do that stuff, not to hurt him, but to generate enough awareness in him so the guy would wake up. So the guy woke up. Now picture the guy. He's drunk. He doesn't know where he is exactly. And he's got a bunch of people staring at him, including a cop who's looking at him. It's really easy at that moment for that guy to go, "Oh shit, I'm in a whole bunch of trouble, and I'm going to try and get out of here," and whatever. And the cop was beautiful. He said, "No, man, we just want to make sure you weren't dead. You're not in any trouble. You're not in any trouble. So I'll tell you what, let me help you get off the bus so that these nice people can continue to go, and then I'll get you what you need so that you'll be okay."
Wow.
And the guy complied, because the cop was taking a "I'm caring for you" attitude, not "I'm going to beat the hell out of you" attitude. So he had a nice positive outlook. The guy gets up, kinda. Cop has to help him up. And the supervisor on one arm, cop on the other, and they take him off of the bus. And I don't know what happened after that, because I continued to go. But why can't we do more of that, Matt?
Kevin, I was criminal justice in college, and a statistic I heard throughout my entire life, and it still might hold true maybe, that most police officers killed on duty are killed by their own gun because they were too trusting, warm, and then the element of surprise happened. And we don't want to lose anyone, but you have to play it very safe. And so there's quite a controversy here. You like a happy ending and it's all fun and warm, but things happen out there. And all the time we lose an officer being that type of good person.
Yeah, that may be true, and I hope that that's not true, because it was such a good story too.
Oh, that's wonderful how that played out. That was beautiful.
Yeah, but Matt, you ruined it. Now I'm sad.
Sorry, dude. Sorry, dude. I guess that follows fact. If there's a gun in the home, there's a bigger chance of death in the home.
Oh, there is.
I got to point out that cops in Europe are less likely to have guns. Guys in England, the cops don't have guns. The French don't have guns.
So what do we do with the? Here's the question of the hour, and maybe we should save it. No, I'll ask it now. What do we do with the 300 million guns that we currently have on the streets?
Well.
Matt, what do you think? What do we do with all? We've got more guns, almost more guns than we got people, and how do how do we get them out of the bad people's hands, especially since, well, I'll give you an example. My brother-in-law committed suicide. He had several guns. He took his own life via suicide. So there was a gun shop down by where he lived, and I took the 12 gauge shotgun that he owned, and I took it there, and I said, "Can you tell me who this belongs to?" The guy thought I was crazy because he said, "Well, how would we know?" I said, "Well, aren't these things registered?" I've never owned a gun. I won't own a gun. But he said, "Aren't these things registered?" Or I said, "Aren't these things registered?" He said, "No." So we have no earthly idea. So literally, I could have taken that gun and sold it to somebody else, and there's no trail. And that guy could have taken that gun and killed somebody, and there still would be no trail.
It was either Time or Newsweek many years ago. It was a gun that kept getting stolen from household to household, and the bullets traced to the many homicides until finally they melted it. Because I believe that's a practice, to melt a gun if you've had certain bad history with it. Initially, I commented about, do we stop and search people at random because it's for the good of the whole? And if there was some way, maybe the military has something we're not aware of, to actually know who has what at a present time, if one's in a car or not. I once broke up a mugging. I did that in West Seattle years ago. I got reprimanded a little bit because they said, you have to understand those people carry guns. They have it. And I said, we're all losing here. And I couldn't live with myself seeing this old man get it. But anyway, I obviously made it through. The old man did. The teenagers ran off. They were white kids. And I don't know how it played out. But again, it's a healthy fear. To answer the question, I think people should be frisked at random because of the imbalance we have, and go with that. And if there's a way to figure out who has what a technology, go with that. Not to disarm a legal owner who doesn't have an arsenal.
Well, here's a fun fact. 3D printers, you can print your own gun now.
Yeah.
Untraceable gun and print one.
And that's the technology. And Matt, I would be curious to know if you thought this through enough to under what, because if a cop has the ability to stop anybody at random for any reason, that leaves open the door for a bad cop to do whatever he wants.
That's very true. And then we have things where, like, the state of California can check you if you have types of produce that can't cross going to the Canada. When the borders are open, they have that ability. So somewhere along the line, like the DUI checkpoints, they have something in that effect that we're all getting at. There's no positive answer. You can't take them all away, but we got too much out. And the youth problem. I don't own a gun because my home has been broken into through the years, and I don't know what's going on. And maybe they had a gun, but at least they don't have another one.
That's which is really good. It's weird. I have never been broken into. Don't own a gun. Never had one. Never had anything of value in my house because I'm basically poor. And so I've never had anything. Never been broken into. Never had. Of course, I've never lived in. I know that you are a world famous author, and so when people come talk to you about your authoring and stuff, they assume that you're a rich guy. So I guess I don't know.
I'm not, but I've had people write me and who, me, that type of thing. When my homes were broken into, I don't have anything of value. I was really curious what they took. It amused me. And then I had insurance. It just bothered me that whoever did it was probably armed and they're getting good at it. And what about my neighbors? Am I going to read about them in the newspaper?
Well, what did they steal?
Oh, gosh, they got a big boxy microwave oven I got as a wedding gift many, many years ago, myself being divorced over 30 years. They, God, what else? I think they took my wedding ring, but I was divorced. I had it somewhere, so it wasn't really sentimental value. Somebody's got it now. Good luck, that type of thing.
Well, jewelry I can see, but stealing a microwave, I guess they're hungry.
I think they had to leave with something to show for the effort.
Yeah.
And so they got that of all things. And I might have given them $5 to take it. Now I got some more counter space.
By the way, I wanted to ask, since we're having this discussion and Paulette is joining us, she's listening to us. I wanted her opinion. Is having the three of us together fun to listen to? I would love your opinion on that. So you can just you know how to comment. So, but in any event, Matt Shea is the author. Matt, where do they go and find your books, your audio book, and all of that?
Well, I have a website I'm proud of because it has you on it, Kevin, and it is mattshaybooks.net. A lot of free stuff, free audio book. You did a spectacular job on one of my stories. Spectacular. We have it on there. And then you and I did another project, A Barrel Full of Monkeys. A lot of fun stuff. It is. If it isn't free, it's dirt cheap.
It's virtually dirt cheap. I'll tell you that right now. And but go to his, and your website again is mattshaybooks.net.
Yes.
And and go download Elmo. Elmo is a great read. It's an audio book, and and I voiced it, but it's really is a good read. Anyway.
And in the near future, I'm going to have some Eric Hall books on my website with websites to contact that author.
Thank you. Good. Very good. Yes, sir, Eric.
Oh, I read or listened to that one recently of the guy that was struggling for his place in life, and everybody was moving on, and he's contacting all his friends, and I was trying to start fights with people, and that was a great story.
The Town Terror.
Yeah, The Town Terror.
My mother and father, that book was dedicated. That book has 20 stories in it, and that was their specific most favorite story, The Town Terror.
It was a good story.
Thank you.
That was a good story. Yeah, thank you.
Did you read it or listen to it?
I listened to it.
Oh, he voiced that. He did a marvelous job, didn't he?
It was terrific. It was just terrific.
Yeah. That was me, you silly man. I did that. Paulette said lots of here, let me put that up for everybody. And now what did I say that I end up in the doghouse for? Just because I don't want to move to Montana?
In Big Sky Country, you have the biggest doghouse they've ever seen.
That's right.
But I will tell you that it's on my bucket list that I hope to do this summer, and that is to go through Montana to just south of Yellowstone, where Custer's Last Stand site is.
Little Bighorn. I love that. My buddy Steve, my favorite mechanic I retired with, he's from Hamilton. And in one day, we drove over 1,000 miles staying within the state of Montana. And among other things, yes, we saw Little Bighorn. And see it. It's incredible.
Wow.
I'm going to, because I know how it ended.
Don't tell me.
No, I know how Custer died. So, but that's between he and I.
That's another story. Yeah,
it is indeed. Okay, we've been doing this for a while. This is a lot of fun. Matt, will you come back? And if it's all right with Eric, will you come back next week and hang out with us?
It's been
I
terrific.
love doing radio with you guys. Kevin, we've done quite a bit together and hanging out with you guys. The other night, that was so much fun. Yes,
great.
I love it.
Great. Wonderful. Looking forward to it.
So this is the point of the program where both of you get to say anything that you want to say, regardless of what it is, to our audience. And Matt, you're the newcomer. You go first.
I appreciate how you stick your neck out there, and we will take something of controversy, meaning well. And so we're just showing light, not necessarily taking a side. We had a very sensitive issue today, meaning well, how can we better? And when people call in, write in, now we're something. Now we're going somewhere with it. So this is an open floor for those watching, listening. Please make contact. Please join us, and thank you.
Absolutely. Eric?
Well said. Be activated. Be activated. Be kind to people. Plan ahead. Plan ahead.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think then. Let's see. I've got t-shirt material coming out. But the one that came
Like cotton, linen.
Well, they're going to be t-shirts
Poly?
with sayings on them. One of the sayings is going to say heal your shit. I just happen to like that one. And and then another one is but the new one that I came across yesterday, and this is a mantra that everybody can live by. And this was a Coriel Kramer, who does the Tuesday show. She lost a cat. Now she's an animal communicator, and this particular cat she loved and dearly loved. And when they had to put the cat down, and the cat told her, "No regrets." That's how I want all of us to live our lives. No regrets. Every moment, every day, live it to your fullest. Take care of each other. Be kind to each other, and do not regret. Do not leave room for regrets that there's something in your life that you wanted to do that you didn't do. So I'm going to the Little Bighorn. But with that, guys, thank you so much. And Paulette, thank you for being our silent person there thing.
Thank you, Paulette. Good to see you.
And gentlemen, next Wednesday at noon.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Matt.
We'll see you then. Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other because each other's all we've got. See you next time on My Independence Report.